Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Cooper, your host for today. Welcome to the Sharpen Podcast, brought to you by Acumen, an exclusive community of CEOs and business owners to help you grow your top line, optimize your bottom line, and enrich your storyline. On this episode, we're going to talk about accounting versus strategy, or the difference between a bookkeeper, a controller, and a CFO, something that everybody is confused about. My guest today is a man whose wit is unparalleled. He makes me go look up a new word in the dictionary every time we hang out. He has a little bit of Benjamin Button with a side of middle-aged Terry Potter inside him, and he's a valued partner in Kansas City's Acumen community. His name is Ben Olsen with Tarsus CFO Services. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great to be here. And yeah, I don't know if anybody gets the visual on this, but yeah, the glasses are such an important part of my whole mystique. It'll be a shame if I ever have to change them away from the Harry Potter look.
Well, maybe fashion changes here at some point.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay, give us the quick once over. What do you do? Who do you do it for? And why are you here?
Yeah, so I'm a vice president for Tarsus CFO Services. We are a national accounting services and financial advisory firm. We work on what I'll call a co-source basis, meaning we may or may not be on your staff, but and in-house every day. But you're going to do some work, and we're going to do some work, and your finance and accounting functions are going to be better when we leave than when we started. And we're stage of company experts. We focus on companies that are in the period of change. We'll often call that lovingly corporate puberty. And if you're going to go through a step change in your company, you probably are going to experience some issues with your data. And so we're going to help you get your finance and accounting data right. And then we're going to help make better strategic decisions with that. And we do that from a place of deep experience. We've seen the movie, and so we're going to guide you through whatever it is in the questions that you have to get from here to there.
All of that is true. We have been clients as well as and many people in Acumen. So thanks for all that. All right, man. So what happens when somebody shows up to Acumen is not only are they learning, but they're starting to see where some of the gaps are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think most founders and or companies that are started, high sales, high operations, high marketing, and finance is usually the trailer. We don't see in the mid-market a lot of like finance-led companies. And so therefore there's usually a gap in experience. And one of those things that always gets talked about is how much you paying, who are you hiring, what are you calling them, what version of that is now. So start at the bottom and build this pyramid or whatever. So like, what is it about accounting that just confounds everybody, even of the most savvy business owners? And then where are we supposed to go with that?
Yeah, well, so I've been a business owner. I've spent my whole life helping people buy and sell companies and working on improving the, what I'll call the shareholder value. And so, what I've learned is that nobody goes into business excited about doing the accounting for the business, right? They want to make the widget and they want to be really good at the widget, whatever that may be. And then all of the tedious stuff that comes with that, your accounting, your risk management, IT, aspects of HR, all of that stuff is compliance, and that needs to go somewhere else because I'm the visionary and I'm the founder and I'm going to go, boil the ocean. Well, that's great. And at some point, though, you're going to wind up needing some good people to do the sausage making on all that tedious stuff that you don't want to do. Accounting is data. And accounting internally, I think there's two things that people should understand. And I didn't understand these. There was one accounting course where I went to college. I didn't take it. I'm not a finance major. And so I've learned everything that I know today about finance and accounting from just being entrepreneurial myself and having to figure it out in the street. So good news, bad news. I'm going to give you the layman's language for this because that's the language that I know. Accounting, people will typically hear that and they're going to think CPA, which means my sort of priest and prophet between me and the IRS. Well, no, that's certainly a function, and God bless the CPAs and the people that file taxes. We need them. But when you go out and you sell something, or when you go pay somebody else for something, and you're doing that in a company, somebody's got to record that. And you probably are going to want to come back and revisit that data later and figure out, what did that tell me about the transactions? Did I make any money? Did I lose money? How, why, what will we do differently next time? That's really just accounting. And I would call that bookkeeping even at the most basic level. I'm going to take a transaction and from um, order to cash or from procurement to payment, I'm going to just track all of the little pieces in the transactions. So a bookkeeper is going to take some data and make an entry in some kind of a system that I've provided them, usually QuickBooks. We're focused on lower middle market companies. For us, that's sub 100 million in revenue. Sweet spot's probably 5 to 30 million. You're going to go through 5 different ceilings between 5 and 30 million of revenue. And so you're going to have a bookkeeper that'll take some data and make an entry. Above a bookkeeper, then you're going to have somebody that's called an accountant or maybe a senior accountant, accounting manager, depending on whether you've got a staff to manage. And those people will probably have some formal training in accounting, some language, and some maybe even a degree that equips them for the functions to not just kind of dump stuff into QuickBooks where you tell them, but to make some thoughtful decisions about where things go. Next layer up, third layer of the cake is a controller. The controller is the person who is in charge of all accounting and compliance, and they're probably very familiar with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and they've read the gigantic book that's super tedious on how to maintain right GAAP standards for bank reporting, et cetera. Past that, you make a flip of kind and not degree.
All right,
So,
so let's stop and go through those three because those you said a lot in those three.
yep,
One is usually I start a company and somebody tells me I need to stop doing checkbook accounting and looking at my bank account and making sure it's okay.
yep,
And they say, go get a platform. And so I go get QuickBooks. And I
yep,
don't really ever want to learn anything about it. So it's the worst day of my month. And I
yep,
go and I do all the transactional data. As soon as I have a couple of people, whoever is on the operation side, usually office manager or someone that now does AR and AP, and make sure that the credit card comes in and we apply
yep,
all that.
yep,
And then it gets fuzzy. So things grow. Office manager might have an assistant that does things, and we get to this point where it's no man's land.
yes,
I need more, but I don't know what I need. My accountant's starting to ask for things, but
yep,
I'm really comfortable with the person. I trust the person with all the bank accounts and stuff. And
totally.
this is where it gets scary. And then I'm either stuck or I don't know what the next step is because now there's all these weird titles and stuff. So you just went bookkeeper, what you say, accounting manager, and
Yep,
then controller.
yep.
And then you're about to make the leap. So stay down in this lower level before we get to the strategic world. Uh, how do I think about um, the differences in like where do I start and where do I know I'm in no man's land to take the
Yeah.
next?
Well, you've described it well. So if what you wound up doing, which is, what 90% of entrepreneurs do, you start your company, and then after you get sick of doing it, you can script your wife, niece, mother-in-law, mother, somebody to just start, managing QuickBooks for you. But they may or may not have any formal accounting training, and they may not know QuickBooks particularly well. And they're almost certainly not trying to format the data and then hand it back to you in a way that's formatted for strategic decisions, right? They're not doing executive briefs for you out of the accounting stack. So I would say that most people actually don't. What most people are going to do is say, okay, I need a bunch of fancy titles in my company. I call myself CEO, even though there are 3 people in my company. So I'm the chief executive of, I don't know what, but I'll call myself CEO. And I'm going to call this person that's keeping my books the CFO because you know what? Who's going to tell me that I can't? Um, this is an interesting moment, and we're seeing a lot of this lately. Is that people get themselves into no man's land, or they begin to creep up on it, and they say, "I need a CFO." No, you don't. What you need is a controller. So if you hear nothing else from this, please go ask the world for a controller. And when you ask for a controller, what you will get is somebody who's really good at accounting and puts the numbers in the right places and can bucket them so that 2 things will happen. Number one, your conversations with your tax preparer are going to get a lot easier. So you're going to love that because every business owner tries to pay less taxes. Secondly, you will have numbers that are formatted so that other people can recognize them. The difference between shoebox accounting is and then like real trained controller led accounting is shoebox accounting makes sense to me and only me, and I'm the only person that cares, and that's fine. The minute that you have to open the kimono and start sharing financials with somebody else, or your internally prepared accounting statements, whatever you want to call them, at that moment, you probably ought to think about translation. And a controller is going to translate all of your weird shoebox accounting and processes and all of your little homespun artifice into something that can be mostly interpreted by somebody else. And what they can understand, and nobody understands everything just by looking at financials, they'll actually have a coherent conversation with you and you can go on from there. So no man's land has got, maybe I need to get a new bank. Maybe I'm going to need some different financing than I needed before. Maybe I'm actually got an unsolicited offer from a private equity group. Oh crap. What are the first three things that everybody asks for? And I'm only using three because it's better than one. They're going to ask you for your financials. And if your financials are a mess, well, it's probably not necessarily a short conversation, but the conversation is going to get very hard very quickly. And you're going to have to go back and reformat things. So controller is first going to get your house in order. Then you can flip to making strategic decisions, and then you can talk to outside capital partners in a much more coherent way.
Okay. So then when does this fancy title with the C on it make sense? When do I need a CFO?
So a chief financial officer could be thought of as a chief finance officer. And I would take the shortcut that if you don't have airtight data telling you what you did historically and how you have spent your money, and does it make sense to you? Can you open up QuickBooks and have it make sense, or have somebody walk you through it and talk to you about the accounting purely, the history? If you're not pretty solid on that front, then bringing in a CFO who should be forward-looking, strategic, drive the growth of your business, have a forecast, and force you to make considerations around how are we going to pay for that weird thing that you just cooked up and that idea that you had that is going to supposedly make you a billionaire, but that's only if it doesn't kill you or you run out of money along the way. That's a CFO. A controller is just going to tell you, how are you doing today? And do you have any cash in the bank actually? And then when's the next dollar coming in relative to the next dollar going out? Those two people, the controller and the CFO, should work very closely together. And most executives are going to, and certainly most owners, are going to prefer to talk to a CFO who can help them plan the future. A really good controller can kind of bridge between two. The interesting thing is, not many controllers can go become really strategic. The people that self-select to be really good at accounting are usually not great strategists, and they may not hang in the conversation with the owner for very long. That's not a criticism. That's just an awareness. Don't ask a duck to climb a tree, right? So when you go for a strategic conversation and you're dealing with the CFO, they actually, ironically, don't have to be great at accounting. They just need to be good at interpreting your business decisions enough into accounting speak and finance speak. Finance being, I want to talk to bankers, I'm going to talk to equity investors, I'm going to go talk to the rest of the community that is performing financial functions, and not just getting the data in the right place at the right time, but thinking about how to use it. That's what a CFO is going to go do.
So here's a fun question. As we sat around the table, everybody went around and said, how many days does it take to close your books at the end of the month?
Yep.
And it was wild, the differences between companies. Now, certain industries have things, but in your opinion, how many days on average should it take for a company to close their books for the month?
Yeah, a really well-run company should be able to do it in 5 to 10 days after the end of the month. So that would be
How,
the expectation.
so when you start working with people, what is the average?
A multiple of 5 to 10 days. And it's probably, it's not always a low multiple. And that should be one of the main markers of being in no man's land. If we hear people saying, gosh, it just takes me forever to get my books closed. Like, okay, well, why? Maybe we just start digging in. It's three things: people, processes, and systems. And sometimes you got to wait on the sales team to get in their receipts. Like, well, does that actually hold up the real conversation that you should be having about how to manage your business? That last $50 of T&E spend? I don't think that should hold it up. Also, like, hey, somebody should go yell at the salespeople. Like, That's not a surprise. That has to happen in every company all over the world every month of the year. So number one, let's acknowledge who the people are that are in the system. Let's look at the process that we use to collect information from them. And then let's look at the technology and the other tools that we're using to do a good job. Once we inspect all of those things, answers are going to start to reveal themselves pretty quickly.
Well, and imagine how when within 10 days you now make decisions differently as opposed to 30 days, right? You're already a month behind the month. You're
Yep.
making decisions with old data. It's backwards looking anyway.
Yep.
So it just all snowballs. So efficiency here makes you a better company.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah, it's tough to solve July when you're in August. Yeah.
yeah, real, real. Okay. How big of a company am I, or what kind of margins am I having before I'm hiring a full-time CFO? What's the stair step to this person's inside?
That's a great question. And frankly, a lot of people try to frame this in terms of expense. I would invite everyone to reframe the consideration. If you've got a CFO and somebody who deserves a C-suite title, you've probably got somebody that's expecting to work, 50 hours a week, who's going to charge real hard, get six figures for their compensation, and is going to generate a multiple of value in the company. Pause for a moment and just think about whether or not you believe your organization could tolerate that kind of influence. If you think you can tolerate 50 hours a week of somebody who's going to kick ass and take names, bring them in there. If you can't, then consider a different level of resource. And that, I think, should be considered this how much are you going to jerk the wheel on your organization, and how much change are you going to ask everybody to tolerate at one time, particularly if you've never had a CFO or your finance and accounting stack hasn't been very sophisticated. Man, that would be a lot of change to push through the tube real quickly.
What are you talking about? The nickname is CF No. All they're going to do is put the brakes on this organization. They're not going to push us. Like, what are you even talking about?
So the time at which somebody's asking for a CFO is probably because you're already in a period of meaningful growth. And so your organization's having to grow and change in all kinds of ways. And the CF No is not going to say, hey, you can't do anything. They're going to say, that's a great idea. How are you going to pay for it? You don't have the money or the personnel or the wherewithal in your technology. Because guess what? You've probably underinvested in all of these areas to make the next jump that you need to make. Again, not a criticism, because jumps can come upon people quickly. Maybe you weren't expecting to get that huge order. Good news, bad news. Before you encounter catastrophic success, why don't you sit down with somebody and run the numbers? And that's what a CFO should be able to do in partnership with you, not to say you can't do it. Just say, we're not ready this instant. How are we going to get there? So hopefully that's the conversation that people would have. But most entrepreneurs, they thrive on this idea that the world is against them. And so somebody's got to make an enemy. Try to get a CFO or somebody on your team who you actually might enjoy talking to, but do not expect them to be your friend. You don't actually want that. You want them to be somebody that will challenge you. And then by the time you're done with a challenging conversation, you should feel pretty good about the answer.
You said the words underinvested. What's the right amount of investment to be making?
It varies so much. There's no good answer to that question. So I wish you hadn't asked me. But I think that I think that the answer is probably a little bit more than you're doing now, because most people are looking at accounting, finance, risk, et cetera, as cost centers and not believing that there's any value to be derived. It's just, I have to keep my numbers so I can tell the IRS something. Oh, really? Well, maybe if you understood your performance better, you would be making different decisions. I don't know. Maybe that's worth investing in.
Tire kicker. All this is great. Tell me really the difference salary wise. What do packages look like for the two different roles between controller and CFO?
Yeah, great question.
And we all know this is general and different parts of the
Sure.
country and different, but in general, what do things look like?
Yeah, be prepared for some sticker shock. Controllers and CFOs, and controllers in particular, anybody that's good at accounting in the last couple of years, those salaries have inflated massively. So you're probably going to start with a decent controller at $100,000. It would not be unusual to come in between 100 and 150. Probably expect to pay some kind of a bonus, full benefits. This is a full-time person. Again, think 40 to 50 hours a week, and then more during surge periods. That would be for a controller. A CFO, probably 150 and up for a real, again, C-suite person. And if depending on the rate of growth and the circumstances in your company, they probably will want to participate in some kind of a management incentive program that will have equity-like incentives in it. So 150 plus some bonus, plus some plus benefits, obviously, some fringe, and then something that is aligning with the rest of the shareholder team to add value at the shareholder level and participate in some of that value created. An average management incentive program is going to represent somewhere around 10 to 15% of the equity value of the company over time. And you can set up the MIP, the management incentive program or plan, to start at a threshold above kind of where you are today, because you should not reward people for holding serve. You want to give them equity incentives for growth and growth alone, and that way you remain aligned. And so an incentive program becomes a tool for both retention and alignment over a time horizon of probably 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Fractional world has exploded,
Yep.
and rightfully so, because you might need some or part of these services. So we've talked about full-time all in. What's your take on how to pair fractional expertise with your current if you're going to start investing more? If you're underinvested.
Yeah. So I like the kind of EOS, org chart, accountability chart. There's a seat in your organization for somebody to lead your finance function. You're going to need that. There's a seat for somebody to lead your accounting function. How many hours are appropriate for that person? Do you need 40, 50 hours a week, or do you need 10? And how would you know? This is the other question. We have people come to us now on an increasing basis saying, I need a CFO. We say, great. To do what? And they say, I don't know. I've just been told that I need a CFO. Say, okay, well, then let's do some assessing for what you're ready for, what it is that you need, what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish? So be ready to have that kind of a conversation. And I think that the leap to hiring somebody on a W-2 basis, there's sort of two things. If somebody can't ask you what you need and what they're going to do you want them to have the job? And then secondly, if you don't need somebody full-time, great. Again, don't just think about, please, that I'd like to save a little bit off of $150,000 a year. If your organization needs a full-time CFO, it needs a full-time CFO. If it doesn't, then don't try to force one on your organization, and ask somebody that has, seen the movie before. And there are plenty of people out there. This whole industry has exploded, so you don't have to call Tarsus, but we'd love to hear from you. If you want to just get an understanding of what could this person be doing and how long do we think it would take, you can just sign up with somebody for 5-10 hours a week, or even a month for a long time. Now, if you only want 5 to 10 hours a month, you're not paying a lot of attention to me. I don't know how much of my attention you expect to get, so let's just also be honest with each other about this. Doesn't feel like a huge priority. If you need a little bit more and it's going to say 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, maybe we're having some episodic need and I just had somebody throw an LOI at me and maybe I'm going to get bought and I'm panicking. I've never sold a company and I don't have a CFO and I'm not ready to run a diligence process. Hey man, there are people out there that will lean in at that moment. And you could get 60 hours a week from those guys, or 80, especially if you're with a firm. There's no cap on that. So there's all kinds of reasons to call somebody up, not just business as usual, but a moment of kind of a 911 call. People are available out there to do that.
Okay. So I've heard this. I now understand that perhaps I'm in no man's land. There's a gap where I've underinvested. What's my first step? How do I start assessing where I'm at and what I need?
Well, first of all, you should be in an acumen group already, and you should be able to turn to your board and ask
Really?
them, what should I
Thanks,
do?
man.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, step one, join acumen. Step two, just start asking questions. If you need to go to the doctor, you need to go to the doctor. All right, just admit it, and ask some people, what have you done? People that you respect, and who could you refer me to? You can go online and look for a fractional CFO and just make some calls, but kind of outline for yourself. All right, I'm in no man's land. These are my pain points, and this is where I would like to go, and just start interviewing some people. Period. New sentence. Ultimately, you are looking for a person, and a person that will come shoulder to shoulder with you and help you through whatever dark night you're experiencing, is somebody that you can have good rapport with, who has enough technical wherewithal and will give you the knowledge that you need at the pace that you can tolerate. I just can't overstate how important that is, that you're ready when you're ready. And so, listen to yourself, and take the medicine, though, too, because you're paying for it. You might as well act on the information that you're getting. And so, if you want to go and meet 5 different people, interview them, talk about what you've got, go with the one that, makes you feel like they understand you and who has got the technical wherewithal and the experience to help guide you through. Um, Nobody knows everything. That's okay. Just try to get someone that you can where you can tolerate the learning curve together.
Good. Bonus question. How are you being sharpened, challenged, and inspired currently?
Man, I'm as you can tell, an insufferable know-it-all, and I will blather on too long about things. I love stepping into situations with people who are really working hard at doing their best across all domains: family, faith, community, business, and particularly where those all of those different elements of life intersect, and trying to live in those spaces with a lot of integrity, meaning structural integrity, the unity and of all of those elements. And people reach a point, and I've reached this many times myself, where I don't even have a good question to ask. I just know that I'm having a problem and I'm struggling. And I love to step in those moments, because you can feel like not only can you feel like you're adding a lot of value, if you can meet someone at their most vulnerable, uh, you're doing a good thing that day. And what can sharpen a person is doing that in a way where it's also gracious. So that's my hope, is that I'm growing in my ability to step in with people in these periods of vulnerability and frustration, and be not just a good guide, but a good friend, and a good Jesus follower at those moments, and hopefully spread a little grace in the world. And thankfully, Acumen has provided me an incredibly rich set of opportunities to do that with really good people, and I get to work with people who I enjoy. So it's a blessing at many levels, and it's a challenge because you got to get up every day and peel the potatoes, and I got to get 5 kids out the door and feed them 3 times a day, and hopefully be halfway decent to my wife, more than once a week too. So all that while wearing the Harry Potter glasses. So heavy is the
I think
head.
it's going okay. I think you actually look a little younger than we've started recording this, so it's
Perfect.
going okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, in review, are you in pain, or are you feeling like you're in no man's land? You want a controller, not a CFO. And then, is there fractional expertise or strategy? Do you need to invest in backwards looking and faster, or forward looking and growth and strategy? Those are two separate things. So do them well. Ben, thanks, man. It's good to have you here for a quick thing. I look forward to seeing the fastest man on the old man soccer field this weekend. It's going to be
Yes.
fantastic. And if you're interested in becoming a member of Acumen, go to acumenimpact.com and click on the apply button. If you'd like to learn more, we have a ton of great content under the resources tab. Ben, that's where they can find us. Where can they find you?
They can find us at tarsus.pro. That is the company website. You can also email me, ben.olsen, Olsen, at tarsus.pro. Or you could probably find me, yeah, at the Old Man Soccer Fields or hanging around various Acumen meetings, just looking to pick up some wisdom.
Appreciate you.
You too. Thanks, buddy.